A Road to Freedom, The Life and Work of Frederick Douglass, by Adam Healey. Introduction. Frederick Douglass was an African-American abolitionist who lived from 1818 to 1895. He struggled against the odds his entire life. Born into slavery, Douglass's early life was filled with hardships. He worked from dawn until dusk and endured painful whippings. Douglass's struggles motivated him to seek a better life. In 1838, after a childhood and young adulthood spent in slavery, Douglass escaped to freedom. Immediately, he began a long battle to end the practice of slavery. The Union's victory over the Confederacy in 1865 ended the Civil War. The nearly 4 million enslaved African Americans who worked on the American South's farms and plantations were free. However, the freed slaves still had to fight for many rights, including the rights to vote and own property. Until his death, Douglass challenged society's beliefs and devoted his life to helping African Americans gain equal status in the United States. Chapter 1. A Life of Slavery. The year was 1818. Winter had descended upon Holmes Hill Farm in Maryland, and Aaron Anthony's slave, Harriet Bailey, had just given birth to a boy. The boy was promptly named Frederick Augustus Bailey. Without knowing it, small Frederick was born the property of a stranger. Frederick did not know who his father was. Later, he learned only that his father was a white man, so Frederick was biracial. In those days, it was common for slave owners to have children with their slaves. Many people believed that Aaron Anthony was Frederick's father, but Frederick never knew for sure. Frederick's childhood at the Holmes Hill plantation was lonely. He was not allowed to see his mother, who worked in the cornfields during the day. At night, she would sneak away from where she worked to see him. With his mother forced to work, Frederick was raised by his grandmother, Betsy, sometimes spelled Betsy. They shared a small cabin in the woods, and despite missing his mother, Frederick enjoyed living there. At times, Frederick's grandmother would talk about someone called the Old Master. Frederick noticed that she became fearful when she mentioned his name. However, he did not know whom the Old Master was. Later, Frederick would get to know the Old Master far too well. Frederick spent the first 6 years of his life living in his grandmother's cabin. He led a relatively happy and independent childhood. However, this was soon to change. Upon turning 6, Frederick's life took a dramatic turn. His grandmother was forced to take him to a plantation owned by Edward Lloyd, whose estates were overseen by Aaron Anthony. When they arrived at the mansion, Frederick's grandmother told him to play with the slave children. Frederick did as he was told and soon became so distracted that he didn't notice that his grandmother had left. Then one of the children told Frederick that his grandmother was gone. He ran back, crying, to where she had been standing, but she was not there. Frederick never saw his grandmother again. Frederick had begun a new life without his grandmother, in a totally unfamiliar setting. He would no longer be spending his days playing in the woods outside his grandmother's cabin. Frederick Douglass was now a slave in earnest. The conditions at Lloyd's plantation were awful. Frederick was given just one piece of clothing. It was a long, scratchy shirt that hung down to his knees. Without blankets or beds, Frederick and the other children had to huddle together to stay warm at night. As if being constantly cold wasn't bad enough, the lack of food made conditions even worse. The cornmeal Frederick was given to eat made for a very poor diet. The cook would put the corn in a...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?